Okay, very good. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting, December 7th, Monday night. Historical reference is the day they bombed Pearl Harbor, and the only reason I remember that every year because it's also my sister's birthday. So shout out to my sister, happy birthday. Just to call the meeting to order, and also in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Acts, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Public Open Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the school districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, sent to the Chatham's clerks of the borough and the township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, and the Star Ledger. So with the housekeeping behind us, Mr. DeQuillo, do you mind doing roll call?
Not at all. Mr. Gilfillan.
Here.
Ms. Chigarelli.
Here.
Ms. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Connors.
Yes, here.
Ms. Cronin. Mr. France.
Here.
Ms. Kenny.
Here.
Mr. Nonaker. Ms. Weber.
Here.
7 present in the count.
Excellent, thank you. We're going to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we have a special guest star here, which Dr. LaSousa will introduce. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yes, and for a special treat, thank you, Ms. Weber, we have one of our most accomplished musicians from the high school, Elizabeth Stewart, who is going to perform our national anthem. Elizabeth, I believe, just got back from Nashville, where she sang in a national level type of event. And she also has been an all-state singer, sung in Atlantic City, in Hawaii, at Carnegie Hall. She's got a resume that is pretty impressive for a sophomore at Chatham High School. So she will sing us the national anthem, and I will turn it over to you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, are we, just point of reference, since you've done this about 100 times, do we stand for the national anthem?
I mean, why not?
Okay.
Yeah. Right here?
Sure, that's all right.
Okay. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the Rockies' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
That was fantastic, Elizabeth.
I need her for Sunday.
Folks, now you have to come back every meeting.
That was outstanding. Wow.
I need her.
Let's go down.
That's not bragging when you can do it, that's for sure.
All right, kid, what can you do? The little one. Can you juggle at least? What do you bring to the family? Hey, congratulations, that was spectacular. Probably harder singing here than it was in Nashville. Outstanding.
Holy smokes.
Thank you.
That's hard to follow that, man.
Yeah.
I wish I had done the the president comments before that. That's a tough act to follow. Holy smokes.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
It was wonderful.
I have a couple of items to have a great night. Thank you. So just a couple of announcements or items that I need to cover in the board president's comments before we get to the administrative reports. There was some talk around town and about the board's position on the use of lights. Excuse me. So I just want to restate the board's position as we covered it last meeting at the public session. And it's very simply, the board has authorized use for safety purposes. So where safety warrants it, for the safety of our athletes, safety of our staff, the board has authorized the use of lights. The football team has had a fantastic season this year, so this past week, the board authorized it for 2 or 3 nights, not even nights, late afternoon, so that they could practice in a safe environment and prepare for the contest. So the policy, the position is no more complex than that. If safety warrants it for the athletes and for the staff, we authorize the use of lights. And wouldn't it be nice to have to authorize them again this time next year on a repeat run to the states? That would be fantastic if we could do that. So just to restate the position, it's safety, for safety only. The second item that I need to cover is a little more bittersweet. Over the weekend, John Nonamaker has announced or decided to resign his position from the Board of Education. John has served unselfishly on the board for 5 years, and he's only had the best interest of the children in Chatham, and we're certainly better off for having him had on the board. Now, I've known John for about 15 years, so I could probably talk far longer than we want to go in this meeting, and everybody else on this board can. But we could talk about his accomplishments for a long, long time. But if it's okay with the rest of the board, if we can just maybe hold off on all our accolades and have John come back, maybe for the beginning of one of the meetings, either the January 4th or the mid-January. Like I said, I could go on, but we have a bit of a heavy agenda, and John wasn't able to make it tonight anyway, so I'd rather, talk about all his accomplishments with him here. And we really need to get to the topic of the referendum, which was really the main focus of this particular meeting. We're eagerly awaiting the recommendations from Mr. Gilfil and the Finance Committee, so we really want to put our focus on and throw all our resources and focus on the referendum. But again, sadly, John has resigned, and we'll talk more about that if it's okay with everybody to cover that at another topic and really send him off with a proper roast and a send-off. So with that, I'm going to pass the baton to Dr. LaSousa for the administrative report.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Just two quick items. The first is to extend the congratulations to all of the crew and cast and staff members involved in the fall production of Look Homeward Angel. I got over to see one of the shows, and it was terrific. And it's just a huge undertaking to put on a production like that. A lot of moving parts, and it was excellent. So I congratulate those students and staff members who were involved in that. And then, of course, also just want to congratulate the football team that took a nice lengthy run all the way to Kane University this past weekend. And although it didn't end in quite a storybook fashion, it was still a terrific season. And kudos to the staff and the students for such a great effort. The other two items on my agenda are just a quick summary of the Hour of Code, which I'm actually going to have Ms. Chase speak to a little bit. But the Hour of Code is it's a national initiative aimed at exposing kids to computer coding and trying to sort of demystify and make less intimidating computer coding. So when I turn the mic over to Ms. Chase, she will just give a quick summary of that, because we've got activities unfolding all this week in all of our schools around the Hour of Code. And then secondly, Ms. Chase will just go right into the park testing results. We have been receiving in kind of drips and drabs our score reports for our students, and we have received by this point the summary results for our schools. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Chase, and then if there are any questions, we can elaborate at that time.
Okay, very good. Hour of Code first and Park second?
Sure.
Very good.
Okay, so with regard to the Hour of Code, Mrs. DeGunas has been working with the Design and Technology Department and the teachers throughout the district to find avenues through which we can introduce and support our students in doing some of these Hour of Code activities. So for our students at the K through 5 level, they will participate in an Hour of Code program that will be hosted by our librarians during this week, December 7th through the 11th. At Chatham Middle School, our 6th and 8th graders will actually engage in the activities in their science class, and the 7th grade students will be instructed in a lesson by Miss Lightis and Miss Toto, who will also introduce the students to the 2 Now robots that we have. So they've actually programmed those robots to share some information on an hour of code and to promote computer science in the middle school for our youngsters. And our students at Chatham High School will participate in hour of code activities through their math classrooms. So that's kind of the series of activities we have, which is very interesting to me because I remember when this was first announced a year ago, we were kind of doing somewhat of a more scattered approach, but now we have a pretty comprehensive approach to the hour of code grades K through 12. So it's exciting. Now to park results. So every year I have the pleasure of reporting on the progress of our students throughout the district with regard to our state assessments. So this presentation will be somewhat similar in nature, but there are a few other components that are new just based on the changes with regard to our park assessments moving from the New Jersey Ask to these new assessments. So first I'll provide an overview of what the trajectory has been with regard to the New Jersey state assessments over the past 5 years, share the results of the park and the science assessments as well, and then give some information with regard to moving forward this school year with the assessment schedule. So beginning in 2010, New Jersey began working with the Partnership for the Assessment of Readiness for College and Careers, also known as PARC, and the work was focused on actually replacing the assessments in English language arts and math. At that time in 2010, 26 states were part of the PARC consortium, and they worked together throughout the years 2010, 2013 to develop the PARC assessments, which resulted in a pilot administration, which we actually hosted here in the district in some of our schools, Southern Boulevard, Lafayette, Chatham Middle School, and Chatham High School. And last year, New Jersey officially administered the PARC to our students and remains as one of those 5 states in the consortium, regardless of the fact that the governor has announced that we will actually move from the Common Core state standards, which are actually the standards that the PARC is aligned to. So we'll see how interesting that is. So this is an overview of our statewide assessment program, and in addition to administering the PARC, English Language Arts, and Mathematics assessments, we are also required to administer assessments in the area of science and at grades 4 and 8, and to our students who are enrolled in biology courses. Our state assessment program has been the use of the New Jersey Ask, which we, in reporting those scores, have spoken to 3 levels of proficiency with similar ranges throughout the grade levels that have been tested. Unlike the New Jersey Ask proficiency levels, PARC actually has a range of 5 levels that demonstrate or support the level of expectations that the students are with regard to meeting those standards. So if you look at level 1, any student score who falls within a 650 to 659 falls in this level category, and that signifies that the student is not yet meeting grade level expectations. And this continues to level 2, which is the range is 700 to 724, and that would be for a student who is partially meeting grade level expectations according to the assessment. Level 3 is 725 to 749, and then we go into level 4, which is actually the state's telling us that our students are meeting grade level expectations at this range, and extending into level 5 where students are exceeding grade level expectations. But these 2 level ranges actually differ, and this slide shows some examples of that. And what basically happens is at the level 4 range, we all start out with a 750, but the end ranges change, and that results in either narrowing or increasing the gap in the level 5. So parents will have to, and those of us who are looking at this information, need to actually look at the bottom of those score reports to see where the ranges are, because they do differ among grade levels and subjects. So it's really not possible to do any kind of comparison against previous assessments, because we're dealing with a scenario where we had 3 proficiency levels, and now we're dealing with 5 that actually has, significant differences, even up to, almost 20 points within those end ranges. So this is more of a baseline, and future PARC scores will be compared to this data. So
there's no year over year. We can't use it for any comparison in any facet.
Well, that's interesting that you said that, because when you look at our participation rate, it really calls into question the validity of the assessment results, because we had a significant number of students who did not participate in the assessments, especially at the high school level. So you could see the percent of students taking the test actually decreased significantly. So it's not even representative of our entire population. So the results at those levels have to be taken with a grain of salt, per se. Mike, do you want to add to that?
I'll just add that most of us in the field recognize that you can't compare the test year over year. The Department of Education of the State of New Jersey is continuing to incorporate the scores, though, into teacher evaluation systems where warranted, or where they warrant it. So in grades 4 through 7, I think, because I think maybe they left off 8th grade teachers. At some point this year, we're told it will be in March. We'll see if that happens. We'll receive some kind of rating for our teachers from last year. So there's a 10-month gap in the ratings that the state will supply us, and the ratings will be based on the performance of students who took NJ-ASK 2 years ago to the performance of students who took PARC last year. Even though in many districts, higher socioeconomic districts like ours, a good number of students refuse to take the test. So it's, in my opinion, a completely faulty and boneheaded way to measure teacher performance. But it's something that, correct, it's not statistically valid.
Right.
But the state is doing it anyway.
Okay.
Okay,
So where do you go from there, Karen?
well, with that said, let's look at our results. So
But
basically,
I'm sorry, could you back up one second?
sure.
So again, the 11th grade is such a high or low participation rate
Yes.
because of the number of standardized tests that grade takes as a general course of the SATs, subject matter tests, AP tests. So that's significant. I mean, it's not just an arbitrary number. It's because that group of student takes 5, 6, 7 tests that year already.
And also, it was publicly announced that that was not a high school requirement, that PARC was not needed to graduate from high school.
No,
right?
no, and I actually have a slide on that I could speak
Okay,
to. It's
because I
one of the
think that
many
was the
ways that
information.
students can meet the graduation assessment requirement, but it's not
Right,
they're not
but they
required
were-
to like they were with the HESPA.
But they knew that if they
Yes.
had a certain score on an SAT or a certain score on an ACT, that they had met the requirement, so
Yes,
that was already put out by the state prior to the
Yes.
administration of the test.
yes,
Can I ask one more question?
sure.
If someone completed either all of math or all of English, did you get scores for those, or is that just considered incomplete?
Oh, if they only completed one of those subject area assessments
Right,
fully,
so
the
they completed
PBA and the
all
EOI, yes, we received a score report for that content area specifically. But if a child only completed the end of year and not the performance-based assessment, then we didn't get a score because those two were averaged together.
Okay.
And I'll just say, these also are approximate numbers. We're still, as we get score reports in, we're trying to confirm the number of reports that we're receiving with the number of kids that we believe took the test when they sat in the seats last year. But there is question among districts about what are the reports going to look like for students who, even though they were sitting there, were just writing, I hate this test, or that kind of thing. We had some of that, and other districts had some of that too. So what's going to happen is we're expecting another large shipment to arrive this week, and then something else was shipped out today. And as we get it and we turn it over to parents, if there are parents who think that their kids did sit for the test, but then they didn't get a score report, they'll contact us and we'll be able to sort it out and pinpoint which kids did and didn't actually complete a full math section or a full ELA section.
Yes, as Dr. LaSousa mentioned, we already sent out the math scores from grades 8. Any student who took the Algebra 2, or geometry assessments, those results have already been mailed out to parents. So we just received grades 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 for ELA math today. Grades 5 results are missing, so I'm assuming they're going to be sent shortly, I'm hoping. So as soon as all that information comes in, that will, again, be mailed out to our parents.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, one more. Is it any indication that the grades 9, 10, 11 will have the same numbers in terms of percentages of children sitting for the test? And if so, let's just start with that question first.
We think they're right there. They're not going to be far off from that.
No. this year when they
Oh.
take the test, are we looking at 25% or thereabout of the junior year to take it and
I think it'll be
go up?
higher.
Or is that,
Some of us think that there will be even fewer students who take the test this year.
that's what I'm guessing, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what a lot of people are thinking. So we're going to begin, now that we're getting all of the reports back and we're seeing some data, we're beginning to have the formal preparations of how to handle the administration, and Ms. Chase will get to that a little bit. Because last year every district kind of did something different last year because opt-out rates were different in every district, and the Department of Education pretty much gave full discretion to individual school districts on how they would manage that. So we're looking at making some adjustments and trying to have a smoother delivery of the assessments, thinking that it may well be the case that even fewer students participate this year.
And will there be any fallout for the lack of students sitting for the test?
We know that we won't have a financial fallout. I was at a meeting with the commissioner in May, and he insinuated that districts with low rates of participation may well be put on an action plan of some kind, but there was no follow-up to that, so we're not on an action plan at the moment. And we have yet to receive any guidance really about the administration of the test this year. At least new guidance that might, alter what we do.
Is there my last question, is there any information coming out of Trenton or some authority that will possibly alleviate the concerns of the freshmen and sophomores? I can understand the 11th graders because, as Jill indicated, they're doing nothing but taking tests from one form or another, but the freshman and sophomore grades, is there any information coming that we would be able to alleviate whatever concerns they have and maybe encourage more of them to take the test?
There is a huge amount of information on the Department of Education website. We've sent, letters with links to that information home to parents. I can tell you that just today, a member of either the Assembly or the Senate introduced a bill to outlaw park testing after this year. I don't know how many legs, I don't know what kind of legs that bill will have. But there's a lot of information on the Department of Education website. The Department of Education believes that the park is a superior set of assessments to anything we've used so far, that they'll give us better data. We're in the process of, receiving that to evaluate that. And the answer from the DOE would be that there's plenty of information available on the website right now to allay any concerns or fears that a parent or student might have.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, at least with the older grades, as to why they're not taking it, is there's a concern of potential ramifications and ill effects of them taking the test.
Well, I think one of the biggest changes, though, Rich.
I'm sorry, Doctor. That needs to either be corrected or resolved, because if a parent, I could see a parent saying, no, I'm not going to let my kid sit for this test if it's only going to hurt him or her.
Well, the thing of it is that with HESPA, the previous assessment, a student had to take that to graduate from high school. They had to take it and pass it, or they could not graduate, regardless of whether they had perfect SATs, et cetera. The Department of Education has been steadfast that students do not need to pass PARCC to graduate. They can substitute a score, a comparable score, if you will, on the SAT, on the PSAT, on the AccuPlacer, on a whole number of other assessments. So the overwhelming majority of our students don't need, they already meet the graduation requirement via an alternative. So there's no need for them to sit for 3 days or 6 days or however many it might be taking PARCC when they've already met the graduation requirement.
Well, that explains the 11th grade. I'm just not following I've asked my questions. Thank you.
Just to be clear, even with PARCC, they have to have one combined passing score over the course of their high school career, right? Of what they consider for a high school, in place of those other ones. Let's say, not the SAT, the ACT. It's my understanding that PARCC, let's say they sit 9th grade and they crush it, and they've got that.
Correct.
And so
Then
they've
they're
met their
done.
high school requirement.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Karen.
Sorry.
No problem.
Forge ahead. We'll try and hold our questions.
Okay, so this table here shows Chatham's results on the English Language Arts Literacy, so these are grade level outcomes. The first column shows the number of test scores that we have. in our score reports, and then we go along the categories, the levels 1 through 5, and then I combined the scores, the percentage levels, to show in the second to last column from the right the number of the percentage of students who scored a 4 or above, and compared that to the navy column on the right, which is the state. So you can just, if you look at those last two columns to the right, you can see that we outperformed the state with regard to students who are meeting or exceeding expectations. But you see that grade 11 number is 74 test results have come back, and that is a very small percent of our population.
But I mean, the kids who took it must have, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe they voted which 11th graders you guys take the test. We're gonna
We'll pay you.
No.
Yeah, we know that.
So these are the grade level outcomes for math. And again, we see a similar pattern with the exception of our students in grade 8. Most of our students take Algebra 1, so the students who are included in this population are those students who are taking a 2-year algebra sequence. And the number, that 24% in the Navy column against grade 8, there were about 58,184, so actually exactly 58,184 state assessments taken in grade 8 mathematics. And I put that I put the symbol next to the Algebra 1 because that includes both of our students at the high school and the middle school in that figure. So as I mentioned, in addition to the park, our students are required to, we have to administer state assessments in the area of science, and we do that in grades 4 and 8, and we use the NJ asks for that. So we're back to those 3 levels of proficiency, the partially proficient, proficient, and advanced proficient. And these are our results on last year's New Jersey Asks Science. And you can see that there is a, less percentage in the advanced proficient in grade 8, and that's consistent throughout the state. So it could be inferred that that's actually a more difficult assessment, but it's a pattern that we see in similar districts and within the state. The students who took biology last year, 302 of those students, this is the percent for those students, and 27.8 fell in the advanced proficient category, and we have 59.9 in the proficient. So this is the result of that assessment, which we will administer again this year to all students enrolled in biology. Another measure of our student performance can be found in our AP results. So this is our 5-year summary, and the 2 groups to which I'm comparing Chatham are the other scores within the state and actually within the country. So we have a consistent pattern of performing very well in these. And what's most impressive to me is just when you look at the number of subjects tests taken from 2011 to 2015, there are quite a few more that that our youngsters have taken. So that's very impressive because it's huge, exactly.
It's actually almost every kid shy of maybe 100 taking an AP test.
Mike, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, well, that includes kids who take multiple
No,
tests, but yeah.
But it's a 91%, okay.
So this is the assessment schedule for this year. Last year, the park was administered at 2 times. There was a performance-based assessment administered at 75% of the school year, and then the end of the year, which was about 90%. Those 2 scores were averaged together, and then that produced the results that we saw on the previous 2 slides. Now there will only be 1 administration, and the window for grades 3 through 8 will be April 4th through May 13th. So at any point during that window, we can administer those assessments to those students. The high school window is April 11th through May 20th. So as Dr. LaSousa said, we're going to meet about how we're going to schedule this and our plan with moving forward, taking into consideration the AP testing window, which falls through this, and also our spring break, which does. The science assessments for grade 4 through 8 is administered only on 1 day, whereas the New Jersey Biology Competency Test is a 2-day assessment, which will fall on May 25th and May 26th.
So Karen,
Sure.
we're moving away from the 2 testing periods, is that correct?
Yes, we're only 1 administration, which has cut down a significant amount.
But I thought that was the purpose of the whole testing, was just, okay, you're
I think that the park was not that popular last year in some circles, and there was a lot of pushback toward the end of the year about the amount of time students were spent testing.
Okay.
And so the consortium, worked to try to modify the testing schedule to be a little bit more, or to be less impactful on the school year.
Okay.
So they changed they changed from a two-tiered test to a one-time administration.
Okay, that's perfect.
Now, will you, I know you said you're going to coordinate it with the AP testing, but one of the things, which, we talked about, like with NJASC, because it was a short window, you used to say no testing by the teachers at the same time as NJASC. With Park, you didn't do that because it was such a large window. Will this change that? Will you have no, honors and regular class testing during
Or major assessments,
Park?
or unknown.
Because again, I think that was part of the issue why parents didn't take it. The kid had two, honors tests the same day that they had, a Park, to sit for 3 hours in the morning and then go in the afternoon and take two, honors tests that impact your GPA, kids get burnt out.
It's much more complicated than the AP test. When a teacher is teaching an AP class, let's say you're teaching AP English literature, every kid in your class is taking the AP test. With Park, many of our high school courses are mixed with grade levels. So if you have and if you have AP English literature, or you have some other class, you might have a mix of sophomores and juniors. And because we had two different administrations and whatever it was, 10, 12 days total of testing, if the teachers couldn't continue to do assessments, like let's say you had 5 kids out of 23 that were taking Park that week because they were sophomores, but the other 18 were juniors, to freeze those kids for 12 days and say we're not going to have an assessment would have set the 18 kids, or whatever I just said, back 12 days. And of course AP testing there's a deadline. It's, your AP test is May 8th, it's May 8th. Right, so
Exactly.
it was much more, our hands were really tied with whether or not we could do that. It was more that we had to treat kids sort of on a case-by-case basis, and if they were behind the 8 ball because they were in a class, they had to keep on moving along. The teachers, appropriately were flexible in working with those individual students. It will help us this year that Park is only one administration. The 2 administrations really was difficult on us.
But it's still difficult, I got you. Okay.
So we had some conversation about the graduation requirements for students, and this slide just shows the options. So students could take any of the Park assessments that are on the slide and pass it and meet the assessment graduation requirements, or if a child did not meet those or did not participate in those assessments, they could take one of the substitute competency tests and meet the criteria that is listed here. For a student who, for whatever reason, is not meeting either of these 2 assessment requirements, what would happen is the district will work with that student to gather examples of the student work that demonstrates that he or she has met the criteria in the New Jersey Department portfolio requirements, and then we would submit a portfolio to the NJDOE to demonstrate that that child had met certain standards and requirements, and then the DOE would review it and let us know if that child met the requirements that way. So there are basically 3 ways in which a student can meet these requirements in addition to the required coursework and credits.
I'm sorry, can we just focus on that
Sure.
portfolio appeal? What sort of timetable is that followed if a child is falling in that? Is this process starting second semester senior year, and is there a chance you could be bucking up against graduation day and the child may not know if he's going to get his diploma? That's not a criticism of you guys. I'm just trying to figure out the timeline for a child who falls into that category where you've got to go the extra mile. When do you know, and when can you submit the papers to make sure, one way or the other, the child knows if he's going to get that diploma?
Yes, the timeline is exactly how you described. So right now we have a few students in that situation, and we're going to be administering the AccuPlacer to those students, which would provide an immediate result. And then if that student is not able to meet the score of 6 on the AccuPlacer, Right Placer, or the 76 on the elementary algebra, we've already started to have conversations with those teachers to gather examples of student work to start to put that portfolio in action. But it's, the DOE, we have to wait for them to get back to us after the information we submit. So it is a tight timeline. And Mike, I don't know if you have anything you want
Rich,
to add.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. This is a source of frustration for us. HESPA was administered the first week of March. We would get the HESPA results before the end of the school year, right? So literally like like June 15th or right around the last week of school, we'd have HESPA results. Students who failed the HESPA and therefore could not graduate from high school, we would know that in June so that we could put them in an appropriate course, for example, when they began their junior year.
Okay, yeah.
So we could
Before graduation.
we could schedule them for an appropriate course in the fall. We could begin to, organize ourselves in advance of the alternative method for meeting graduation requirement. Park was administered last year, and we did not get the results of our students until 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, November. So, of course, we lost 5 or 6 months of time, or students did. Students who didn't know how they fared on Park and maybe didn't meet any of these other requirements, and we do have some of those students. They were not notified in as timely a manner as they were previously with HESPA. So now the high school is working with those students. We're dealing with the portfolio appeal and also administering the AccuPlacer, which is something that they hadn't taken last year. And we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure that our kids all graduate if they deserve to graduate and have met all of the other requirements.
Aaron, you said AccuPlacer is
Thank you.
immediate results?
Yes,
Can you take it n number of times?
yes.
Okay.
So we actually, Mr. Walker arranged for Chatham High School to be a testing site, which we weren't, so we were pretty aggressive in our approach to make sure that we could cover every
Yeah.
possible situation to help these youngsters.
Does this apply also to 8th graders? They can't graduate either, or is this just high school?
High school.
Okay. I guess if I'd read that class flow, I would have figured that out. Okay.
Okay.
Lots of classes.
Obviously, I would have needed that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just ask you one quick
Sure.
question? And I know we have a boatload to get to, and Matt's chomping at the bit to get to the referendum. You don't have to go back to it, but the slide that showed these signs for the 4th and 8th grade, because that was the NJ ask, did you see any, and if you can't give me an answer immediately tonight, that's fine. Did you see any increase from the previous year in that 4th grade class in the science? It's just a class we've been keeping a close eye on for quite some time.
You know, I have to get back to you on that.
Okay,
I don't know offhand. I don't know
That's
offhand. I
fine. I
apologize.
didn't expect you to necessarily, but it's just a grade level that we've been keeping a close eye on
Yes.
for some time, and we can compare year over year. So when you have an opportunity,
Sure.
if you don't mind letting us know. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Ms. Chase? No. Thank you. Dr. LaSousa, were you done with your? I'm done. Okay, excellent. Peter, are you leaving the microphone on that side tonight? I don't care. Yes. Very good, thank you. We're going to move on to committee reports. Oh,
No, business administration.
oh, sorry, Peter, my bad. I just saw you talk to Matt. I thought that was your report. Sorry, Peter, I apologize. Business administrator's report?
I just wanted to give a brief update on the Washington driveway. The borough is discussing what to do with the first 100 feet on Wednesday night at the traffic safety meeting. And then hopefully the council will come up with an answer at the January 25th meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, I'll be in attendance at that meeting. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeQuilla? Okay, sorry. Now moving on to committee reports. Ms. Clark for personnel.
Personnel met prior to this meeting. We just had a brief agenda. We discussed implementing some new background check procedures for enrichment staff, working in the enrichment programs in the schools, and Ms. Grant is going to be speaking with the PTOs about that. We also talked about the Affordable Care Act and how how that could implement is going to roll out in our district, and what needs to be done more kind of from a paperwork logistical standpoint from our HR department. And we also talked about the staffing initiatives that we're looking into for our HR department currently.
Excellent, very good, thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Clark? I know several of us were in attendance. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Kenny?
Curriculum has not met since our last meeting. I believe we're scheduled for December 20th for our next meeting.
20th or 21st?
Oh, 21st.
21st, I think,
21st.
sorry.
Apologize.
20th is Sunday. Okay, very good, look forward to that. Finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan, are you going to hold off till board business, or you?
No, I guess we can do it now. We met on December 2nd. A couple different topics, and I'll go to the main one at the end. One was the Washington driveway issue, which Mr. DeQuilla already referred to. The second was continued discussion over the use of high-speed printers and copiers within the school district. Another one which we're going to do an audible on for our committee approvals, whatever they're called, today will be the recommendation of the establishment of a paddle club within the school district. We will have the wordage put in there. Actually, one of the fathers who was integral in terms of developing this club and throwing his support behind it is in the stands tonight, who will come up and just give us a brief overview during the public session as to what it looks like in the participation, et cetera. We continue to look at long-term budget implications of current cost trends versus historical cost trends, and looking things when they go outside what we declare and believe to be our long-term trend lines. We do this always in particular focus on our healthcare costs as they have, and what could they do in terms of an impact on the district on a long-term basis. The last thing that we did, we are now going to throw up a screen behind this, was after much debate, after much give and take and much conversation, we have now come up with what we would like to present to the board in terms of the framework of a referendum that would be for the September timeframe. As you all know, we've gone through a lot of this with all the feedback from the poll that we put out to the public, where we ended up getting well over 1,000 responses. We did tend to try to focus on the projects that were receiving the most support from the district. So with that, what we have really tried to do is bifurcate the needs and the wants of the district in going to the public to ask for their support in a referendum style of raising funds. As you know, the actual long-term impact of utilizing a referendum versus a second question for some of these things, whether or not they be appropriate or allowed to be utilized or even voted on a second question. The referendum process is actually on an annual basis and a long-term basis. Actually, we believe a better way to fund projects that we believe that are not only needs of the district, but also have the capability of delivering the largest impact to the district. Of course, and as you all know, we began this whole referendum process with the focus on the arts. That has been our primary focus. I think we've been very verbal and very open with the public that we feel that after significant investment in curriculum, in infrastructure in terms of classrooms, and also in athletic facilities, that it was time, after years of neglect, to finally bring as best possible the auditoriums at both the high school and the middle school up to par with the level of success and the level of quality of the arts in Chatham. So with that, we now have our recommendation of 5 projects that we feel need the highest level of focus and the highest level of intensity in terms of feedback, feedback not only from the public but also feedback from we all here as an elected board. All of these were done with the intent of having the most significant impact, as I said, and relieving what we believe to be the biggest issues that are continuing to be prevalent within the school district. So with that, there are 3 different verticals there that we need to speak to. One is the estimated project cost, which of course is what we received from our architect. The second is the estimated debt service. So the debt service is basically, in a simplistic matter, is what we will not be responsible for as we get state aid back for those projects, and then we use a net district cost. So what that means is whereby, for example, on the high school auditorium, we have a projected cost of $3.5 million. We do, by law, have to carry that $3.5 million as our headline figure, even though $1.4 million of that, the debt will be actually serviced by the state and not by the district taxpayers. So our net district cost is $2.1 million. So then, in level of, in no particular order, I don't think, in terms of anything that one warrants above the other, we did feel the following were the needs of the district. First of all was the high school auditorium. Second was the middle school auditorium. Cougar Field improvements, just so nobody doesn't get anything in terms of lack of understanding what that means. That is all of the issues at Cougar Field, including the sound system, the bleachers, the macadam, and everything associated with that. So that is not in any way a new field, nor is it anything to do with a field or a potential field behind the high school. Fourth is addition of classrooms at the middle school to address our needs for STEM. Fifth is the Milton Avenue School, 4 classrooms, addition there. So all of that, when it adds up from a headline figure, is $14.3 million. With that, $3.6 million of it, we estimate, this is not fact, this is an estimation, that we will receive the benefits of reduction in debt service because of the fact that they address a number of issues that fit the criteria from the state, giving us a net district cost of $10.7 million. The one thing that we did want to bring up post this is a glaring issue that is impacting our schools right now that we think warrants discussion here as a board to address potentially through this referendum. We did not add it in those top 5. However, this is something that we've been looking at for a long time, and just want to use this opportunity to potentially add it into the referendum, and that's the roof replacements at the high school, the middle school, and Lafayette School. I'm not quite sure if everybody knows, and they spend a lot of time in there. You'll see little buckets lying around the floors within these facilities due to holes in the roof that are allowing water to drop down. As you can see, it's about $1.5 million project, of which about looks to be 40% of it can be listed under the items in terms of potential debt service relief from the state, and thus a net cost of $0.9 million. That brings the total overall figures from a headline basis at 15.8, debt service at 4.2. That's a net figure of 11.6. Pete, if you could remind me and remind the public, the last referendum was across there was, I think it was 25 million?
Total.
And then the net figure was around 21, right?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, so from perspective of, it's just not a like-for-like comparison. I think those figures in terms of a tax adjustment, although we need to look at it because there was some debt service figures that were given back to the taxpayers. This is, average family increase could be just north of $100, give or take. Please don't quote me on that, but it's somewhere in that figure. Too late, but okay. But it's not. It's so not a humongous figure when it's broken down on a per taxpayer basis. So that's how we broke it down. That's what we want to move forward with. The big issues are now is taking feedback from the board in terms of the 5 that we defined as our absolute needs, and then the potential addition of that 6th item. I think when it's all said and done, I don't think anyone's completely given up on some of the other items that were listed and were given a lot of support from the public. However, we felt that in this environment, in this time frame, is that the most important thing for us is to address the absolute needs of the district in a timely fashion. Thus, we brought forward these 5 and potentially 6 items to the board. So with that, we can either discuss and bring it open to comments now, or we can wait for board business to discuss further.
I mean, if it's okay, I'd like to just strike while the iron's hot and do it now, since we're here. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan? I have a few, but I don't want to jump ahead here just because I'm in the pleather chair.
Can I ask a question about the Milton Avenue 4 classroom addition? I know that originally, when it was rolled out on the survey and when we were assessing feedback, the elementary classrooms kind of came out not as a priority. I know if there were more classrooms, obviously, and this is pared down considerably. By putting classrooms at this location, obviously that would probably be the easiest place to put it, but how would that work in terms of relieving stress in other buildings and providing the space we need to provide programming at that grade level, at those grade levels, K-3?
Mike, can you give us the statistics that you utilized to come across that?
Yeah, so the survey contained a question about 6 classrooms total at Washington Avenue and Milton, and then 8 classrooms total at all 3 elementary buildings. And the survey didn't, those 2 survey items didn't have a favorable response compared to some of the other items that are above that one on the list. But when the committee discussed it, we talked about the idea of further modifying the idea of expanding or adding on some elementary classrooms. Milton Avenue is the most efficient place to do that from a cost perspective because we can put one story on top of another. We already have an elevator in that building, so it's by far the most efficient in terms of cost. And we thought, at least to this point, the feelings of the preliminary feelings of the Finance Committee has been that these questions will be separate, not one big question. So if elementary classrooms still are unpopular, the voting population would be able to strike them down. But we really do feel a lot of pressure at the elementary level right now. We really are very tight on space at Southern and at Washington in particular. And if we had 4 extra classrooms, we would be able to move some of our standalone programs at Southern and Washington to Milton and then free up space at those other 2 buildings.
It's like the other, add our word redistricting. We're not looking at redistricting.
No. Right now we have various either preschool classrooms or other special education classrooms with small numbers of students, but that we bus. You know, they might be living in Milton Avenue, but they attend Southern Boulevard. So we would just reverse the flow toward Milton.
All right, thank you.
Does anybody else have a question? Well, a lot of you are on finance, so.
Actually, before Jill, you ask your question, I may actually preempt your question with thanks to the audible and the kick from Rich is that the recommendation of the Finance Committee was to actually present these from a vote perspective on a standalone basis. So not combine them all into one. We would divide them up into 5 different questions, present the argument to the public, and then public could vote on them individually. And then, of course, that would be if we add the 6th one in, do that as well.
I think the only thing I'd wanted to add, just from our meeting, the reason that we separated out that 6th question on the roof was because it wasn't something that we had talked about. But so we wanted to make sure that everyone was on board, that we felt that it was an important addition to the facilities, but we wanted to make sure everyone was on board about that.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Ann, did you have questions, or do you want me to jump in? Okay, I have a few questions, if you don't mind. So just to recap, the proposal that the Finance Committee is making, based on the survey that was put out there, you're basically recommending essentially the least expensive of the options. There were many options in some instances. You know, full redo, tear down. Is it a true statement to say the 3.5 for the high school auditorium was the least expensive of the proposals in the survey?
Yes.
Yes.
And we also, the threshold we were looking at is what was it, the 50% or above?
Sure, understood.
So, and the least expensive was the one that had the most votes.
Okay, very good. And that holds true essentially for all of those, barring row 15, because it's a modification of what was on the survey. Okay, now row 11, the Cougar Field improvements, again, that's infrastructure only. That's safety. The bleachers are a disaster and an accident waiting to happen. Fencing, macadam, the sound system, and then parking, improving the parking situation over there and make that less. Then my last question is, okay, Matt or Peter, on row 21, the replacement of the roof. I mean, the referendum we started a couple of years ago, so it's been a couple of years since we've talked about some of these capital improvements. Is it a true statement to say that the roof wouldn't, if the referendum were to pass in September, the work wouldn't get done until a year out?
Correct.
If the district, because we budget for capital improvements, we budget for things like this. If the board were to take the money out of our capital improvement or our capital reserve to fix the roof, it would cost $1.5 million. If we put it to the town for a vote in the full electorate and it passes in a referendum, we receive a 40% discount and will only pay just under $1 million. Is that a true statement? So if we take it out of our budget, it costs 1.5 at the cost of something else that we wouldn't be able to spend that a little over $500,000 on, $600,000 on.
That is correct, based on the preliminary estimates or preliminary discussions with the state. Those projects would qualify for the debt service, which would
Okay.
get us 40% funding.
So based on that sale, I mean, my position is, and I'm just, I know that most of the finance committee, except for Lot, is to my right, so I'm sort of looking to my left here. Based on that position, it would seem remiss for the board not to put that as a question out to the public to decide, do you want to take advantage of the debt service and get the discount or the free money of $600,000 and then use that money for some other capital improvement? We have a list a mile long of things that we budget for every year and squirrel away money for. So my position is we would be almost remiss to not let that be an option of the folks that are spending the money. It could be voted down, but if they want to take advantage of the debt service, or they could wait until, we take it out of capital improvement and maybe in 2017 do the roof replacement, but it would cost the school district $1.5 million, which again, we would not be able to use that $600,000 for some other capital improvement.
Right.
I don't know what
Can I just ask a question on the roof in the high school auditorium where we're getting these leaks, like when we just had the play and there were all these buckets everywhere. Is it a function of the roof or is it a function of the auditorium needing to be renovated?
The roof leak in the auditorium has been a very difficult one to determine where the leak is generated from. Because it does not leak every time it rains. It leaks if the rain comes at a certain angle, either east or westerly. We believe it leaks through the HVAC unit. The CHS auditorium renovation, as well as the middle school auditorium, includes new roofing on both of the spaces, as well as new HVAC units. So that should and correct all of our situations.
So the
all
roof
the issues we
replacement
have at
is
the high
on other parts of the building that do not include the two auditoriums, correct?
Correct. Each of the auditorium improvements
Include,
includes the roof.
got it.
Because I think it would not, the finance committee discussed it, we discussed it with the architect. It would not be feasible to redo the whole interior of a house and leave no roof.
Right.
Waiting for something to happen to ruin what.
So at the very least, if the roof replacements did not get approved right away, at the very least, the leaks in the auditoriums, which seem to be the largest, am I correct? I mean,
They're often the most
issues?
visible.
right, would at least be taken care of.
Yeah, just to elaborate too, and so all of our buildings have been added onto over the years. So the roofs in each building have varying, like at the high school, you might have one section of roof that's 10 years old, another section that's 20, another section that's 30, and 3 other sections on top of that. So this wouldn't be a full, it's not like there'd be new roofs on all of these schools. It's that we have a long-range facilities plan, we have we contract with someone who reports out on our roofs and the condition and so forth. These would be the next ones that come due. And like Ms. Weber said, if the referendum is asked in September, we usually don't do any roofing work except in the summer because it's so disruptive and there's debris. So it would be September of 2017 when the work would be accomplished.
I mean, I think this is a great proposal. I think it listens, you know, to the, not only the survey results, but also what we heard during the 21 different presentations of the previous referendum, that many folks were in favor of renovation and maybe not in favor of the larger project, the new construction down at the middle school. So, I mean, I certainly think this is reflective of what we've heard from the larger voting public, which is, I'm sure, why you made the proposal. I like the modification of the STEM class, not the STEM classrooms, the Milton Avenue School, because we already have the plans for those, so we know the dollars on that, and that is the most cost-effective. Matt, what, in terms of next steps, and I certainly agree with making them all separate questions, not contingent, not linear, let them all stand on their own. All right, Matt, are you including the high school and the middle school auditorium standing on their own, or is the auditorium one question?
On their own.
On their own, very good. So what would be, in order to get from now to September,
Pete, can you go through those timeframes? We
Sure.
have to go, we're lucky because a lot of the architecture work is done in
Right.
some aspects, so we just
done
now,
and paid for?
yeah.
If the board tonight gave the go-ahead on the 6 projects that are currently up on the screen, work with the architect, and the architect will finalize all of the different plans and submit them to the state for their review. And when they come back, we would anticipate in February, March, the board will know the exact dollar amount of the referendum and can start working on finance and whatever publicity they need to do in preparation of the September vote.
February, March, will we know the exact debt service as well?
Yes.
Okay. And we could work on, is it an interpretive question?
We can work on, well, the wording or whatever we would have in the ballot or the interpretive question.
Okay,
Because the ballot will have the legalese, we will need to work on the interpretive question, so it'll be easy for the public to understand.
okay. Okay, very good. I mean, I'm certainly, are you looking for a vote tonight, Matt, or?
If everyone would like to, this is not giving final approval, it's giving the approval to the next step.
So the next step, just the
Right.
next, and the process and the layout.
Right.
Right.
I mean, I'm certainly in favor of this particular proposal, and it's à la carte. And again, on the roof, I think we'd be remiss not to put that out to the electorate and let them make the decision if they want to save the $600,000 to use it on something else.
Do we have to vote, like, do you need a roll call, Peter, or?
No.
No? Is anybody against this particular process or have an alternative option?
I'm aware of that.
Say what?
6.
Okay, very good. Okay,
So,
Excellent.
Pete, do we just put that as an audible into the agenda items?
No, we don't need
You don't need to?
vote on it now, because
Okay.
you talked to the architect.
thank you for the Finance Committee for all your hard work. I know you rearranged your schedules over the last few weeks to meet more often in order to get this proposal up here. So thank you very much, Lana, thank you. Seeing no other questions, I'm going to move on to Policy and Planning with Mr. Franz.
No meeting since our last meeting. Next meeting is Jan 4th.
Okay, fantastic, thank you. We're going to do liaison reports prior to our public commentary. First liaison report, Mr. Connors.
Nothing to report from the borough?
Thank you very much. Ms. Clark from the Township.
Nothing to report from the township.
Thank you. Mr. Connors, back to you for the boosters.
Boosters had their meeting on December 1st last week, and once again, the boosters stepped up to the plate, donating money for the fan buses for the game against Cranford, and they also did a terrific job with regard to the help they provided with the home game, first home game for Chatham in about 30 years. We're going to hear about a paddle presentation during the public session, but that same presentation was made during the boosters, and my inclination is that the boosters will look quite favorably on the paddle presentation, again stepping up. The last thing I'd like to mention is the holiday tournament that the boosters will be involved in over the Christmas break. It is a basketball tournament at the high school, boys and girls. It's during the Christmas, New Year's time period. They'll bring in about 4 or 5 different teams to come in and play. It's a terrific production, and also it's a great fundraising opportunity. It's for the John Taylor Babbitt. For those people who know or don't know, it's a great cause. The family stepped up after a horrible tragedy, and they have donated money and defibrillators throughout the various locations in Chatham. And each year, the boosters will select a fundraising, they try to keep it local, and I am thrilled, as I'm sure the Babbitt Foundation is, that they selected that one. So please, please, if you have some time over the Christmas break, please go to a game, donate money. It is a tremendous cause. Next booster meeting is January 5th.
January 5th, thank you. Boosters did a great job pulling the community tailgate together. That was fantastic. What a nice community affair and event, and it seemed the whole town was there down at Keene University. We certainly filled the stadium. Seeing no questions for Mr. Connors, I'm going to move on to the music theater report. So again, Dr. LaSousa touched on it, but many, many thanks to the community for their support of the fall play, Look Homeward Angel, and also congratulations to the director, Laura Russo. She did a fantastic job with the kids, and the technical director, John Lakota, and also the terrific cast and crew. The kids did a fantastic job. I'm always amazed. I love going to see the plays. I saw the Friday night show, and it was fantastic. On November 25th, the Southern Boulevard School Community celebrated the Hope Week with a very emotional performance of We Are the World, led by the Southern Boulevard music teacher, Tracy Roskman over there. The teacher sang the verses of the song, and the K-3 students sang the chorus, and it was part of a larger curriculum, and the hope in this particular program stands for helping others preserve and excel, and it's just a fundamental belief that acts of good are contagious, and that, you know, there's more than just the recipient, and there's more that comes out of goodwill than just the immediate gesture. Also, the Chatham High School Select Choir hosted the 16th Annual Regional Choral Festival at Chatham High School on December 1st. In addition to our high school competing, performances were given by Columbia High School, East Orange, Mendham High School, Passaic County Technical Institute, Tenafly High School, and each was adjudicated by college-level staff. So a lot of these students go on to college level, and they get professional feedback from professional musicians and higher-level staff members at local colleges. The Chatham High School Select Choirs and the Chatham Voices will also perform tomorrow at 11:30. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, tomorrow, Tuesday the 8th, at Morse Museum in the lobby. And the performance of students, after their performance, student will be given a complimentary admission to view the Morse Museum exhibits. The high school capella chorus, the jazz band, the chamber orchestra will be on tour December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, to spread some holiday cheer. They'll be going to be performing at Lafayette and the middle school. So not only is it a spread good cheer, it also drums up some business for the programs as they move through our curriculum in the music department. And also, mark your calendars. The spring musical at the high school will be Shrek the musical. So it's a fantastic score. I'm sure it's going to be a great play. So that is going to be on March 3rd through the 5th. So I'll talk about more of that as we get closer to the spring. So that is my official report for the Chatham Music Theater Boosters. Moving on to Chatham Education Foundation. I'm assuming there's no questions, so I'm going to move right to Milana and the Chatham Education Foundation.
And I'll be quick to say there's nothing to report at this time.
Okay, very good. Ms. Cronin on PTO District Cabinet.
Our meeting tomorrow, nothing to report.
Tomorrow, very good. Here at noon-ish?
Yes, here at noon.
Wednesday.
Oh, isn't tomorrow Wednesday?
Oh, you get a whole day back.
I do this all the time, sorry, Wednesday at noon.
Wednesday, very good. You got a whole day back, guys.
Today is Monday?
So I make a motion to move the minutes of the November 16th public meeting and the December 2nd public session and executive session.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Connors, thank you. Mrs. Nicola, can you just remind us who needs to abstain?
On the November 2nd, I'm sorry, on the November 16th, everyone can vote. On the December 2nd, I will record the abstentions from Ms. Ciccarelli, Ms. Cronin, and Mr. France.
Okay, very good. So, go ahead, would you mind doing?
On the November 16th Board of Ed meeting, the minutes. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes. Here.
I'll wait for Ms. Ciccarelli to return. Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Rowe?
Yes,
Pending
okay.
Ciccarelli's return.
We'll circle back with Ann.
The November 2nd.
December.
The December 2nd public and executive session. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin abstains?
No, I don't, I was here, I was late. I think you just marked me out, but I wasn't here.
Yes, she was.
You are correct, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I stayed correct.
I was here.
Pleasure. I had pleasure for company.
I don't see Mr.
Hold on one second. France,
Abstain.
Ms. Kenny,
Yes.
and Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Ms. Chicarello, take your vote for the December 2nd, which is an abstention, absent from the public in executive session. And then November 16th, meeting. No, just minutes.
Yes.
Second. November 16th
Okay.
is 8-0, and November, December 2nd is 6-0.
She doesn't realize she just said yes to she's buying the first round.
Whatever it takes.
Just say yes.
Thank you, Anna, I appreciate it. Thank you, Peter. We have our first opportunity for public commentary. We moved the mic just to confuse folks, so it's on the opposite side of the room as it usually is. If you wouldn't sign in and introduce yourself,
Paul, over there.
that would be great. After the first public commentary section, we'll move on to the regular agenda, board business, and there's a second opportunity toward the end of the meeting to have a second opportunity for public commentary, so if something comes up, if you wouldn't mind just being as, appropriately brief as you can, as we have a long agenda ahead of us.
Hi, I'm Paul Ivins. I'm a junior at Chatham High School. Thank you guys for considering approving the club. I'm really excited at the idea of it possibly getting approved. So I'm starting this club with, it would be me, my sister Heather, and our friend Colin Schroeder.
Just tell them which one.
Oh, the paddle club.
I'm reading his shirt. It says,
Yeah.
if you would turn toward the cameras, Tom, are you picking up his shirt? It says, "Got paddle."
Gotcha.
You're gonna give a great presentation, we just need to know what you're talking about.
Yup.
I read your
the
shirt.
paddle club. So our vision for the paddle club would be to spread the awareness of the sport to all different kids in the high school, and we'd be even doing clinics for the middle school students. And we'd love if it would eventually become a sport, a varsity sport at Chatham High School, and play against other local high schools that have clubs or varsity sports as well. And we'd also like if we could see the club continue growing even after I graduate, and see it thrive after many years. And the club would be going during the CHS winter sports season, mid-November through February, and ending with the APTA Junior Nationals tournament. With the primary activities, every other Tuesday, we would have clinics run by Patty Hogan, a local paddle pro, and those would be at Center Court, who have already approved and agreed to give us the courts for free. And these clinics would be, we play games, activities, and all sorts of things. And then once a month, we would have the clinics run by Scott Estes, another local paddle pro, and the more experienced paddle players, such as myself, Colin Schroeder, and my sister. And these would be for the middle schoolers. And these would be at Minnesink, and they've also already approved to give us the courts for free. And we've already asked 20 students if they would like to do the paddle club, and they've all already said yes. And then there's many others who actually play paddle already and are nationally ranked. I'll hand it back.
Oh, hold on, Paul. Are you taking questions, or you're?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Questions are, yeah.
I do have a couple questions. If you don't, I'm not that familiar with paddle, so I apologize. Do other high schools that have paddle varsity sports, or are they all clubs, or it's non-existent yet?
I'm not sure in New Jersey. Right?
Yeah, as far as we know, we're not aware of any New Jersey high schools that have teams.
Okay.
But there's a few that have clubs, and there's a whole bunch of high schools within Connecticut and Pennsylvania that have clubs.
Okay.
There's no league. The NJSIAA does not have a paddle league.
Okay.
So we're just trying to start from the beginning and
Okay.
Get this approved as a club, generate interest. There's a ton of paddle in the area.
Sure.
Lots and lots of kids. I think there's probably 6 or 7 nationally ranked kids at the high school that play
Okay.
paddle. And there's plenty in Summit and, the neighboring towns. So we're going to start with a club and see what happens from there. And if we can turn it into a sport, that'd be great.
Okay.
If not, that's fine too.
And do you happen to know the costs associated to the club?
Yeah, we have costs. We did a whole budget, and we've actually gone to both the Chatham Athletic Foundation and the Athletic Boosters last week. Paul presented to the Boosters on Tuesday night, asking them for grant requests to fund the startup of the club for the first 2 years.
Okay.
They will be voting on that at the next meeting,
Right,
January
January
5th.
Yep,
Again,
yep.
by all accounts, Paul won't say this, but I will, it was received extremely favorable by the entire booster, the executive committee, and all the people that were attendants.
Yeah.
And what is the cost that you're
We're projecting
projecting?
$1,150 per year in total.
1,000?
$1,150 per year. And the primary costs, because we've gotten the courts donated for free, the primary costs are the balls that don't last that long. They basically last one session, and then you can't use them anymore. We'll try to use them if we can. So it's the balls and the paddle professionals. Paul was being humble with the people the paddle pros that have agreed to teach the kids. There are multiple national champion paddle pros that are the pros at local clubs. And they've taught Paul and a lot of the kids in town for many, many years, and they're really, really happy, thrilled to be participating in this. And of course, we need to pay them for their very valuable time. Yes, yep. As is his daughter, who.
I know you're not traveling outside of Chatham, you just, right
For
now.
the club, most of the activities will be inside of Chatham. We'd like to reach out to other neighboring towns and potentially do inter-club matches or get other high schools to play against these guys, if that's possible. But we haven't figured that out yet. The main activities, though, are what Paul talked about. That every other week clinics for the Chatham High School kids, and then once a month clinics where the high school kids with one of the pros will teach middle school kids from Chatham Middle School how to do it. And we've talked to a bunch of parents, and they're thrilled, and a lot of folks want to do it.
And it's terrific that you have the Senate Court, which is right down Passaic Avenue,
Yep.
and Minnesink,
Which is also nearby.
which is offering up their courts for free, which is tremendous, showing further support for the venture. That's outstanding.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we just heard this afternoon that the Chatham Athletic Foundation has approved our grant request. So we got the official approval email a couple of hours ago. So that's great.
That's fantastic.
And it's conditional upon your guys' approval.
Okay,
going
fantastic.
forward. Any other questions?
I don't have it. Does anybody else have any questions for Paul?
How do I get a shirt like that?
And a tournament.
Paul, is it co-ed or is it ladies teams and men's teams and co-ed teams? Ladies teams, men's teams?
For
Is
the
paddle
club?
co-ed or is it?
Yeah, it can be. I played with my friend Olivia Morris. I don't know if you guys know her.
Okay.
In one of the tournaments.
Oh, very good.
So
Okay.
it's all forms.
It's all forms,
Tournaments
okay.
The youth tournaments, they're probably mostly boys teams and separate from girls teams. They have different brackets and all, but once in a while there's mixed. And it's a very relaxed sport, so if
Sure.
you can't find a partner and you just, if you're a boy, you can always play with a girl or vice
Right.
versa. It's pretty
Fantastic.
Exactly.
Well, thank you.
And these clinics would be co-ed.
Okay, excellent. Very good. Thank you, Paul. That was an excellent presentation.
Outstanding, thank you.
Thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Good luck.
Then I won't be challenging Rich to a match if he thought you could decline.
Seeing nobody else.
Excellent. Okay. Seeing no additional public, oh, I'm sorry. Usually there's a line. A line of one.
Talking about it at the same time. I got faith in you.
Hi, good evening. Joe Bezralian, Township. First, I was smiling throughout Paul's presentation because I think your sleeve says ITC Junior Open. Does that refer to the Indian Trail Club? I grew up playing paddle at the Indian Trail Club. I lived right there. It was some of the greatest days, greatest matches, and greatest friendships of my life. And I haven't played since really being about 20 years old, but I can feel my blood starting to get jumping again to get into it.
Get his address. And
Paul, I'm hearing volunteer.
A long curve to climb to achieve the old
This is where you learn to
glory,
read
but
between
I'm
the
so
lines.
glad you're doing it now. I just want to express my gratitude to the board and the administration for working on the capital referendum proposal. I think that what the proposal is now seems to have been boiled down to a to me, a bare essential minimum, I think, of what the district really needs to accomplish in terms of capital improvements. I believe that the public will see that too, especially because you've worked so hard to outreach and gather so much feedback from the public at every step of the way, including the very intensive feedback process through that's just completed. And I also view what you've put on the table as a very reasonable compromise for anyone who looked at the prior offering and wasn't convinced. I think this is something very reasonable that everybody should look at with a very open mind. And I, the way it stands now, obviously we'll learn more about the details as we go on, but I will certainly vote yes on all 6 of the items if they're put up there. And I hope that everyone in the public will, even though it might be presented individually and separately, I hope everyone will view this as a need of the whole district and can vote yes on all 6. Thanks again for all your time and energies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Don't forget to give your name to Paul, as a volunteer.
Oh.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Seeing no additional public commentary for the first session. Oh, I'm sorry, Ed. I apologize. I thought you were getting Joe's information.
No, sorry.
I apologize. I saw you walking
Ed
toward Joe.
Barmakin. Is there a timetable in place or procedure for replacing Mr. Nonamaker
Yes.
on the board? Can you
Yes,
just
there is. And Peter,
explain it?
correct me where I misstand, but what will happen is the township members of the board usually interview anybody that's interested. It's not often a long line, but a few folks will throw their hat in the ring. And then I believe we have a couple of months to replace that individual. I think it's 65 days, actually, which
So you guys appoint the person?
we do. If there's 3 or 4 candidates that are interested, the township members of the board will do the initial vetting and interviewing, and then they will make a recommendation to the full board, and then we would vote on that. That's correct. Peter, did I misspeak at all? Typically, the township members vet out a township replacement, and the borough members vet out a borough replacement.
And that's been the protocol here for years. This is not the first time a board member resigned prior to the end of his or her tenure. This is the protocol. I don't know if it's a law or the rule, but this is how Chatham has done it for 20 years.
And John just beat us to it.
The only thing I'd like to add is that Mr. Nonamaker's, whoever is voted in to fill in for Mr. Nonamaker, that term will expire in December or January of 2016 or 2017, because the term is up for re-election in November of 2016.
And we don't flip offices until December?
Until the reorganization meeting, which would be the first week in January of 2017.
Who moved that vote? Really? It's not November?
Nope.
Very good, thank you. So anybody interested, please let us know from the township. Jane, if you don't mind introducing yourself, you know the protocol.
Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. I should like to thank the administration and the board for their willingness to listen and willingness to explore the feasibility of making adjustments to homework, to how homework is approached, as evidenced by the discussions at the Policy and Planning Committee, as well as the break from homework during this past Thanksgiving holiday. I was speaking with the principals from both Chatham Middle School and Chatham High School, and clearly they are so open-minded, approachable, and genuinely interested in dialogue about homework. Of significance and worth commenting was the CHS principal's actions, not at my behest, but apparently he reviewed and reminded the teachers of the goal where feasible to have a break from homework during certain holidays. And he conveyed this was well received by staff, and they especially felt the review of the goals and his reminder communication was helpful, because apparently some of them had forgotten over years that maybe that was a goal of the high school. The principal at CHS also talked about homework at a recent PTO meeting, and it appeared to be a welcome topic among the attendees. I understand, too, that some students have approached the principal with appreciation and positive feedback following homework breaks in the past. And the CMS principal commented that discussions about homework have now become part of staff meetings. So this is so encouraging. Thank you. And now, especially with all that's going on around us in view of current events, It can only be helpful if we embrace as much opportunity as possible to be with family, if we slow down, de-escalate, find calm, be mindful, and enjoy the day, not always bogged down with work. And Christmas and seasonal break coming up calls out for our students to have a time away from school duties easily addressed by declaring no homework during those vacations. And next, let's carry the positivity into the new year, and perhaps the next evolution concerning the matter of homework could be thoughts, for instance, like, why give homework to students if they're out sick? Or what can be learned from districts that already reduced homework? And thank you again to the board for the receptiveness.
Thank you, Jane. See, we're making some headway.
Yes.
Seeing no additional commentary, public commentary, we do have another opportunity at the end of the meeting after board business. We're going to move on to the regular agenda, covers a little bit of board business, and then open it up again for public commentary. So moving along to personnel, Ms. Clark.
I move action items 1 through 17 on the regular agenda, in addition to resolution 1 and 2 on the addendum, and number 18's been added.
Number 18 is the addition.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, give me a moment.
Yep. Number 1 and 2 are the, they're an addendum.
AP. You see item number 2, right? In the finance.
While you're reviewing the items, let me just comment that on the addendum, there's the retirement of one of our staff members, a special education teacher, Maureen Capone at Lafayette Avenue School. I just want to wish her the best and thank her for her service to the district.
Nice.
That's it. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Clark or Ms. Grant, our head of personnel, head of human resources? Any questions to my right? No. No questions, Mr. DeQuilla? And just so the folks in the audience don't think we're rushing through, we received these packets over the weekend, so we have an opportunity to review them. I didn't want young Paul to think we were just breezing through 15 pages in a minute. So if no other questions, Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items A1 through 17, including the addendum on A1, A2, and the additional items of A18. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Chigarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes, thank you.
Agenda items approved, 8-0.
Fantastic, thank you. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 through B9 on your regular agenda.
I'll second.
1 through B9.
A couple things. One, the acceptance of a piano to Southern Boulevard School. From what I originally thought was, looked like Janis Joplin, which I thought was pretty cool. Janis Joseph. In the amount of $2,500.
A former board member.
Yes, I'm going to say a formal board
Well
member.
done. Again, it's outstanding achievement from the Chatham Education Foundation, donating about $11,600 for a number of different things for the high school, as well as Milton Avenue School. And finally, two last ones. One we've already mentioned, which was the donation from the Booster Club to support the lights for the end of the season safety issues over, as we supported the football program through its run to state finals. And last but not least, a donation from the Music and Theater Boosters in the amount of $400 to be used for the purchase of tools and locking cabinets for the production set building at the high school.
Oh, fantastic. The donation of the...
Oh, wait, actually, you know what?
Uh-oh.
I need to fill the audible
Why
on
don't
that.
you do this and then...
Okay, we'll do the audible on that. Okay, we'll vote on this and then we'll do the audible.
So the donation of the piano from Ms. Joseph, former board member, and Dr. Al Ritter, her husband, is the $2,500, is that the cost of getting off the board? Did she promise the piano when she was on the board, or? So thank you to the Ritters, Joseph Ritters. Dr. Ritter helps us an awful lot, also around town and at a lot of sporting events. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan? No questions? Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items B1 through B9. Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Chagrelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Franz?
Yes.
Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes.
Agenda items passed 8-0.
Okay, then we actually add an audible on as agenda item B10 on the audible addendum.
So we don't have that?
Which is?
The paddle, the
Oh,
paddle.
this one's got a reader. Then
Yeah, you
I don't know what it
paddle.
is, the second.
The-
Yeah, the paddle.
The Chatham High School approval for the Chatham High School Paddle Club upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of the Board of Education approves the creation of a paddle club at Chatham High School. The board authorizes the club, but it will be 100% funded by the participants and receive no direct district funding.
I second it.
We just do an aye? All in favor? Yeah.
Aye.
Vote.
Aye.
Agenda item passes 8-0. Congratulations.
Excellent, thank you.
Good job, Paul.
Nice presentation, very nice.
Where your paddle uniforms have a big C on it, Mr. Nonamaker was always concerned about people wearing the Chatham on the front of their uniforms.
Here's the singlet.
Nice.
You don't have to wear singlets, right? Congratulations, that was a nice presentation, thank you very much.
I won't tell the boosters you did a nicer job with us than you did with them, but.
Moving on to curriculum, Ms.
You can
Kenny.
leave, you don't want to sit through the rest of this.
Go, get out.
You can,
I would like to move action items C1 for approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Against? Abstain? You have,
C1 passes 8-0.
very good, thank you. Policy, Mr. Franz?
I would like to move agenda item B1.
I'll second.
I don't want to rain on any parade here, but I just will point out that yet again, we had an incident at the football game this past weekend with a student who had consumed something that should not have been consumed. We seem to be repeatedly dealing with these issues where students are either very sick or unconscious or need to go and get emergency services. So I just want to make it clear that one of the reasons we've adjusted this policy is that despite repeated and ongoing warnings to students and to parents and attempts to educate our students on what constitutes appropriate behavior at a school-sponsored event, we continue to bang our head against the wall with students who are consuming significant amounts of alcohol. So this policy would enable us to use a breathalyzer device to screen students as they come to school-sponsored events, whether that is the senior prom or homecoming or hockey games or whatever it might be. But I just want to be out front in saying that we find ourselves in a position of having to do more and more and more to try to prevent a tragedy. And this policy will likely lead to the use of breathalyzing devices at Chatham High School school-sponsored events in the future, near future.
You just answered my question. I was just going to ask Ms. Chase and Dr. LaSusa, but you've both been in education for 10, 15, almost 20 years. Well, sorry, not you. You started when you were 12. But you're education professionals. Is there an upward trend? Is that what you're seeing? You're saying you're more frustrated. Is that a reflection just you're more frustrated, or is there truly an upward trend?
I'm not sure if there's an upward trend. I'm sure that we have never done more than we're doing now to dissuade students from making poor choices. And it doesn't feel like, anyway, that we're successful all the time. And as we know, it takes one tragic event to really have a devastating effect on a family or community. So we're going to continue to do everything we can to try to educate kids appropriately and prevent any tragedies from taking place.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions for Dr. LaSusa on that? Very good. All those in favor of policy D1?
Aye.
Against? Abstentions? Seeing none?
Agenda item passes 8-0.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. DePaul. Moving on to board business. Mr. Gilfillan, did you have additional comments about the referendum? Thank you again, Paul. Good night now. No? Does any board member have any new business or old business, or if they'd like to expand on the referendum? Ms. Clark, I see you.
I don't want to expand on the referendum. I just wanted to, on December 20th at Fish and Game, there's a blood drive for Michael DiMaggio in honor of him. He was our 6th grader last year who was hit by a car on Main Street. He's thriving and doing great. He's currently in 7th grade, but the family was so grateful of the outpouring of the community that they asked. They hope to do this blood drive every year because the blood was available for Michael when he needed it. So it's open to the community. You can sign up online, go to Red Cross. They've already gotten a huge influx. And
can you repeat the dates and the time?
It's December 20th. It starts at 10. I think it's running till 3 or 3:30, and it's at Fish and Game.
Sunday, December 20th.
It's Sunday the 20th.
3 to
3 to it's 10 to 3.
10
It
to
starts
3.
at 10, ends at 3, but they'll extend past the 3. They're not shutting anyone out.
Okay, very good.
And any students age 17 or older are eligible to give. And I've already reached out to Bill Abrera about it to see if we can get some sort of announcement to
They went to, they spoke to the Key
Schoology?
Club, and
Okay.
they're...
To some of the older students, juniors and seniors that may be eligible to donate, which would be so great.
Okay, so just...
That's fantastic. I'm glad Michael's doing well. And interestingly enough, the gentleman that donated the piano is a doctor, and he happened to be getting his tires changed that day and was right there. So thank you again to Dr. Ritter. Is there any additional business for the board? Seeing none, we have our second opportunity. Oh, my public left. Second opportunity for public commentary. Mr. Heap, there you go. How are the J.C.'s Christmas tree sales going, sir?
I'm here to report.
Oh, my goodness, excellent. Can I pay extra if they get me a really small tree?
Can I pay extra if they bring it over and decorate it?
Sorry, Mr. Heap, we're eagerly awaiting your report.
Bill Heap, Chatham Borough with the Chatham J.C.'s. Just like to report that this weekend sales were brisk. I'm sure in no small part due to the incredible weather that we had. We expect more nice weather this coming weekend. And for those of you in the audience and out in TV land, if you need a tree, we have a tree with your name on it. So please visit our humble operation.
Your hours are?
During the week, we are approximately 6 to 9, and everything is approximate. And during the weekends, it's 9 to about 7.
Do you do the little screw hole thing in the bottom?
Yes, they do. Yes, you do.
Yes, we do.
They do the drill.
We can drill a hole in the
You're
bottom.
open tomorrow night?
We're open tomorrow night.
6 to 9-ish, about.
9 to 6, around 6 to 9, yes.
I've gotten a tree
And,
there for 10 years
the-
and have never been disappointed. The trees there are terrific and the people working there are just as great.
The Boy Scouts did a terrific job this past week of staffing the sale, so we're grateful and want to thank them very much for doing that.
And again, Mr. Heap, if you wouldn't just remind, how much money do you give back to the community from the J.C.'s from your efforts?
Last year was approximately $30,000.
$30,000. Thank you again. That's
Okay.
fantastic.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Heap. Appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Seeing no additional public commentary, wait. I make a motion to temporarily close the public session. We're going into executive session.
I second.
No action will be taken. So all those in favor of closing? Aye. Very good. It will be brief, but no action will be taken. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Have a good Christmas.
Oh, Tom, have a great Christmas if I don't see you.